Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Well, just knock the table. To the Good, the Bad, the Ugly podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me. His name is Mr. Boothe. What's your first name?
I was just about to say my name's Jeff Boothe.
I wanted to guess. Is it Jeff with a G or a J?
It's with a J, and there's only one person that would call me. She's no longer alive, so everybody else just calls me Jeff.
Okay. Is it short for anything?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, where are you from? Like, parents? Or where were you born? All of it?
Parents are, or were, because they're both passed away now. So both from Jamaica.
Okay.
Came over here in the late 50s. And I was born in Lambeth Hospital, born and raised in Brixton up until a certain age. And then,
What part of Brixton?
just off Acre Lane.
Okay. Nice.
Do you know it?
Yeah, I know Brixton well. I used to be, I used to, but I'm around Brixton at times. I'm from Croydon, so.
So if you know Brixton, there used to be barbers called Curlews, just on Acre Lane. That's one of my uncles, and there used to be further down a black-owned business guy called Christie, Mr. Christie. So that was the first time you saw black people in charge of businesses and doing stuff, which resonates to this day, really.
Yeah, my mum used to, I say, she still works for the council, Lambeth Council. She used to be in, it's not Concord House, is it? I can't remember. It's behind the police station. That's where she works in child protection.
Okay,
so
okay.
That's the building behind that International House. Am I making this? I feel like I'm making up names now, but it's one of those. She used to work around there, and I didn't like going to Brixton as much. I used to go there as I got older. I'd spend more time in Brixton. When I was younger, I was more fearful of it because you would hear so many stories. But as I got older, I played a lot of basketball, so Brixton.
Okay.
For basketball, really, South London.
Where did you play basketball?
I used to play in the rec, but I played for Westminster.
Okay.
Westminster Warriors, so I was all down this end. I don't know how that happened. I don't know why I didn't go to Brixton, but
yeah,
it just happened that I went there.
Yeah, small world. Well, I used to, many years ago, I used to play basketball, so I used to play this place called Flaxman Sports Centre.
I know Flaxman.
So we used to play down there.
Still there now.
And a lot of guys, well, a good friend of mine, Steve Bucknell, he was the one of the first English players to make it in America with the Lakers. So, yeah.
Okay, when you were at Flaxman, did everyone call foul all the time? Was it just like so stop-starty? Because that's how it is now.
You just didn't have any refs, so you used to have to call your fouls and just take it as it is.
Who calls the foul, defense or offense?
Well, normally if you're shooting, you would call it, but then you have to get them to agree it.
See, that was always where the breakdown is. Like foul, and he'd be like, what? And yeah, Flaxman is notorious for that now.
Yeah.
It's just, you'll spend a lot more time arguing than actually playing basketball.
But it toughens you up because when you then play a so-called conventional game and the ref's blowing for a foul, you're thinking, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same. Playing street ball is a lot better because when you're playing professional, like semi-pro, whatever level, the refs blow for anything. It's just like, come on, man, you barely get touched, and certain players get protected. I don't like that, and I'm jealous. I'm just jealous that I wasn't protected. That's all it is. All it is jealousy. So, what I believe, I'm going to take a stab in the dark actually, because I don't actually know this. So if I sound right, then it's amazing on me. Are you one of the highest ranking officers, black officers in America?
Disappointingly, yes. So, if you want to break it down in terms of race, if you say black African or black Caribbean, so black African highest is Commander Adi Adelakin.
Yep.
Black Caribbean would be Commander Alison Adari.
Yep.
And then next rank down is Chief Superintendent, which is what I am. So yeah, I'm one of the most senior, which is, for me, is disappointing.
Why?
Because as an organisation that is supposed to be representative of the community, we need to have more diversity at the very top levels, being involved in those key decision making. And if you've got a room which is full of predominantly white people, then you're not making informed decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I think representation matters. It's just getting people to that point. Do you think there's like a wall holding black officers back, or do you think it's a lack of drive from the black community, or what do you think it is? Okay, let me rephrase the question. How difficult was it for you to get to the position you were in now?
Interesting question. Well, let me put it this way. Every rank from the rank of sergeant, I've had to appeal to even get the actual promotion interview.
Wait, what? Okay, for the viewers, how does it work out? Because I know, if I'm right, after inspector, you no longer take an exam, right? So it's just, I want to do that, and you apply. And is the evidence still based on the same format the Met has now for every single application, or is it different?
Whatever system you put in place, the reality is there is human beings will manage that process.
Yeah.
And within that, either conscious or unconscious bias will kick in. So even if you tick all the boxes, there will be occasions where people will say, oh, you haven't served enough time, therefore you can't go through. That is when you need to be able to appeal to say, sorry, based on the criteria, I fit all of that stuff, and I'm appealing against your decision. At which point, it's, yes, okay, you can go through. So every stage I've had that.
Decisions?
Normally either within HR, or normally there will be different organisations have different ways of doing it. But it boils down to, as I said, unconscious bias.
Yeah, because I have this conversation with Mia a lot, and I've been saying this most recently, that I feel, I don't know, but it comes across that we have people at the top making the decisions that aren't as intelligent as the people they're hiring, which is a disaster for the Met. And for me, it filters downwards. So for sergeant's exams, that's not so much because it's an exam. But when you have the board, then you have people on the board not actually understanding the framework. First of all, I consider myself to be quite intelligent. That framework and those targets and all the stuff that you have to hit, it's gibberish. And I'll say it straight. I'll say it. I have no problem putting that up online. It's gibberish. There's two parts of the framework I remember are exactly the same with like one word or two. They essentially mean the same thing, worded differently. And I'm like, well, if I can't decipher this, the person reading my explanations or my answers, how are they understanding this? Am I stupid and they incredibly smart? I don't think so. I think it's been ripped off from another organisation. I don't know where it is. I need to do my research. Taken from an organisation like a big corporate one and just gone copy and paste, and it just doesn't work. And it's mind-boggling why the Met feel that they have, well, they realise they have a problem now, and they don't understand why. And I'm like, because your recruitment process is terrible. So for you, the way you're going, is it, you said it's HR, is it, because HR is a civilian, right?
Yeah, well, when I say HR, you asked my question is in terms of a process, but it's more about the people that implement and then follow through with the process. So you could have the most effective and efficient policy in place, but it's the people behind it that will make it work or not work, as the case may be. And if you look at what it is, what is it that we're trying to test? What is it that we actually want from our leaders? And if your decision-making panel is made up of predominantly white males, then you're going to have an unconscious bias in there. And I'm just saying stuff which is the reality. It's like we need to be able to ask ourselves the questions, is the end result bringing about the type of leaders that the public want. And those are some of the issues that we face as an organisation.
Yeah. I think it depends what part of the public you're asking. That's the issue. But do you know who implements our structure of recruitment? Is it the Met or does it come from the government?
Well, there's a nationally recognised approach which each force will then adapt. One of the challenges that the Met faces is in terms of the sheer volume. So I have responsibility for the attraction phase, and in layman's terms, the moment somebody actually starts their application, they are then managed by the recruitment team.
Yeah.
So that's the situational judgment test, fitness test, all of the things that go. That is recruitment. My role and my team's role is the stage before that, which is to attract people to get them to consider even applying.
Yeah.
And that's the area that I specialise in.
I didn't even ask you what it is. And what's the name of it?
Outreach.
Outreach. You are the big boss of outreach.
I'm the person who's got responsibility for the Met for outreach.
Okay, is that across the board, whole of the Met? That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
That's an achievement. Well done.
I haven't achieved anything yet.
I'm here, so you must be doing something right now.
No. I've only been doing outreach. Has only been in existence the last 2, but in real terms, the last year and a half.
So what was before that?
There would be general recruitment. There was not an outreach team.
So there was no dedicated team to actually go and recruit people in the Met.
So the outreach team, if I go back a bit, so if you think about what happened in America with George Floyd, then the Mayor of London came up with an action plan, which was putting a requirement on the Met to do a certain number of things. One of those was to ensure that we, the Met, were more representative of the community. So there was a clear remit for us to recruit more women, more people from underrepresented groups, with a particular focus on the black community. I was then asked to ensure that the outreach team put in place a strategy to achieve that increasing number of women, people from underrepresented groups and people from the black community. That is our purpose. When you talk about prior to that, recruitment was very much led by HR.
Okay.
And they would advertise it, people would apply, but it wasn't a targeted approach.
Yeah. So that's probably why the issue is now. Well, the issue's always been there with lack of diversity in terms of the black community being police officers. But would you say that that is more so the Met showing that they're changing their approach, that they're paying more attention to it? Because some officers would be like, the Met don't actually care about recruiting black officers. I don't necessarily believe that, but some people would say that.
I think the Met would corporately say they've always wanted, but it's been able to demonstrate that there is a dedicated team, that there is a particular strategy, which 4 stages to it, which I implemented. First one is about the very people that we're looking to attract, i.e. women. There's a lack of confidence, be that due to Nicole Smallman, Bibba Henry, Sarah Everard, stuff about Charing Cross, misogyny, all that type of stuff. Females justifiably will have a concern whether or not they want to join. The black community historically have got many reasons to say, why would I want to join that organisation?
Yeah.
So in order for us to attract, you first got to rebuild that lack of trust and confidence. That doesn't happen overnight. So my team's job is to go out, have the conversations, people call them difficult conversations. It's just having conversations with people, but demonstrating that you understand their viewpoints and their perspectives. Then over time, you can then start to inform them about opportunities to join the Met. What does it offer? There are some people that aren't aware that you can join now and also gain a degree at the same time as training. If you already have a degree, you can get a diploma. If you've already got a degree and you're looking to get, you can join direct entry as a detective. Many people aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
So we need to inform them. And then the next stage of our approach is about how do we inspire people, because many people from underrepresented groups will get pressure from family, from friends, saying, why do you want to join? Why do you want to join that organization? But the only way that we can really change a lot of the things that are happening, the adverse publicity, is we need to have more people from those diverse groups joining and covering from top to bottom to be able to bring about the change. So it's how do we work with key stakeholders to get that to happen? Yeah. And then finally, when they do decide they want to join, how do we support them? How do we ensure that no sooner do they join, we're not seeing people leave at a faster rate? So how do we retain them? And how do we ensure that those that do want to progress have the opportunity to progress?
Okay, how are we doing that? The last bit, how are we making sure that they don't just run away? Is that sorry, go on. In
terms of my role, as I said, it's up until the point they apply. So for me, it's vitally important that we're honest from the outset. There's no point in us falsely selling somebody and saying, you know what, you come in, it'll be a bed of roses. You have to say to people, it's going to be challenging. There are going to be occasions where you might be asking yourself, have I made the right decision? But you also say to them that you're making a difference and that there are like-minded people like you within the organization, staff support associations that can help you, mentors that can help you, buddies that can help you. So if they come in with their eyes open, they are more likely to say, you know what, I'm going to stick it out. Whereas if you tell them, you know what, you join, you'll be an inspector in a year and all this stuff, that's false promising.
I mean, well, not a year, but some people do fast track it. There is the fast track scheme.
There is, and that's the point, is let them know what opportunities there are.
Yeah. How do you feel about, we've got a new commissioner, and his name has escaped me.
Mark Rowley, Sir Mark Rowley.
Sir Mark Rowley, I should know this. I'm going to try and commit it to memory, but I'm terrible. What do you know why it is that most of our commissioners, are they always not serving officers prior to becoming commissioners?
The last two were, or are and will be. Normally, that's not the case.
They're normally promoted from within, as in, not within the Met, but they are currently working.
Yeah, so if you go back to Sir Bernard Hogan Howe, obviously he was a serving police officer.
Because I came at the end of his reign. Was it the end? Yeah, sure. Yeah, towards the end. Yeah, because it always baffled, because that baffled me, to have them, I'm like, why would you, not to say that they can't do it, but I just find it strange that you wouldn't get someone that's currently working right now instead of getting someone out of retirement. I mean, fresh ideas, I guess, as some people say, they haven't been contaminated with the culture of the Met and blah, 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 blah. But then at the same time, I have these conversations when I'm on post. It always baffles me that I can have a boss that's not an AFO. That's, to me, I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. For anyone that doesn't know what an AFO is, it's a firearms officer. If you have no experience in it, how do you supervise me? I'm not talking about the low levels, I'm talking about the top bosses. Do you think that there's scope in the Met to change that in terms of specialising from the offset?
Specialising in what way, sorry?
In the sense that, okay, say I wanted to be a sergeant tomorrow and I passed the process, I just can't go and be, I don't know what that beep is. I just can't go and be, go to like safeguarding. Like, I've had no experience in safeguarding. maybe a little in gangs, but let's just say I haven't had no experience in safeguarding, but I can just go and do it.
Yeah, so if you're talking about could you be a supervisor of somebody in a department that you don't have previous experience, then yes, because the competencies of a leader, regardless of your background, the point, let me put it to you this way, I think the best way to explain it, I am not an expert in attraction. I'm not an expert in media and marketing. I'm not an expert in community engagement. But what I do is I surround myself with people that are experts in those areas, and then I can make an informed decision as to what is the right thing. You will know in the firearms world, or even public order world, a commander will have a tactical advisor that is next to them that will give them that insight, but they will then make the final command decisions. So to answer your question, yes, you can, as long as you've got the right people around you that have got that technical knowledge, and it's then down to you as a leader to ask the right questions.
Yes, as I was saying, I believe that the Met could probably benefit from having both. So having, because I understand that leadership qualities isn't necessarily being great at one thing, i.e., or if you're a firearms officer, you'll be a great leader if you can shoot well. I know that doesn't always transfer to good leadership, but I think sometimes it's to the detriment of the organisation in the sense that sometimes they have leaders that may not necessarily surround themselves with the correct people, like you're saying, and then that's where you're seeing like breakdowns further down and people are disgruntled about silly minor things. But because, okay, I'm going to use examples from Pad B. Officers are always upset over trivial, I call them trivial because I'm coming from gangs and team, of being able to sit down while standing up for 2 hours, depending on the situation. If you've got a supervisor that's never done that post before, they're like, well, why don't you sit down and say 2 hours, just stand up for 2 hours and that's it. You can get a break or an hour and that's a break. If you've got a supervisor that's like, actually, they're more empathetic and it's like, well, actually, I did that for 5 years and I've got a new hip because I understand that standing up, holding 30 kg of stuff with a gun that's on one side of you and you're not balanced properly, you probably should afford them the, sitting down in between and try and find a happy medium in terms of risk assessing and also, the well-being of officers. I think that will go a long, long way. And I suggested this, is small changes sometimes can have massive effects. Mm-hmm. And not to like have a go at firearms. I'm not trying to have a go at any of the supervisors there. I'm just giving examples from my point of view. I think that's where the Met could probably benefit loads and loads and loads if they got that fine balance right in supervision and SLT in which they could make those small changes. Because I know if you were to ask an officer, they're like, yeah, we want more money. It's like, yeah, that's not feasible. But what I can offer you is, I don't know, somewhere to sit down or better conditions while you are working. That
Yeah, I think the point that you're making is valid, but I think this boils down to be an effective leader, you need to be able to communicate effectively. And effective communication is listening more than actually talking. So if I was in charge of firearms, I've previously been qualified as strategic firearms commander. I've never fired a gun. However, if I'm in charge of a firearms team, it makes sense for me to speak to my staff to understand what is it like, what are the challenges, what are the things that you want changing, what are the things that could be improved.
Yeah.
If I then listen to what people have got to say, and I then understand where they're coming from, I don't have to be a firearms officer to go, I don't have to serve 5 years to go through it. It's just basic human interaction, where if you tell me, you know what, could we find another way that I don't have to stand on my feet for 2 hours? And I then say to somebody technically, is there a reason why we're doing it? And if the response is, oh, we've always done it that way, then let's change it.
Yeah.
But it's about having those conversations. And the more you do it, as you're saying, if your staff feel that they're being valued, they will then go the extra mile for you because they believe that you care about them.
Yeah.
It is that simple, but
Yeah,
quite often we forget that. And it's the same with the world that I engage in, where people say people from the black community won't want to join the Met. Well, if you don't talk to them, if you don't actually ask them what are the barriers, if you then don't explain to them, of course they're not going to join.
It's true. I think it's also with in terms of the black community, I think it's a lot of the worry and the trauma has been passed down because, well, this is only my experience. I find that when you speak to a lot of black people, they haven't necessarily had a negative interaction with the police. Not all, some have, but I think a lot haven't necessarily. They know people that have, or they've witnessed something, but to them personally, it's like, oh no. Like, some people find it crazy that my best friend, who's a police officer, never been stopped and searched. We did an episode and he's like, oh yeah, no, never. Haven't had one bad interaction with the police, ever. And people are like, wait, what? And what's really strange is that the black people that like that, they feel like they have to find a reason to dislike the police just to be part of everyone else. Be like, am I really black? Or am I really living the experience if I don't say, oh yeah, there was this time? And they feel sort of left out. And I'm like, no, it's not a bad thing. I've extended invitations to officers to come and they're like, I've got nothing bad to say about the Met. I'm like, why would you think that I want to hear the bad experiences only?
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to hear every experience because it gives a good reflection to people that want to come in what to expect. So it's crazy. Have you had any like bad experiences that you want to talk about? Because I'll be honest with you, I know that you have had bad experiences, so it's a bit of a trick question. But what would you like to speak about?
Well, I'm open. If there's questions that you want to ask me specifically, then feel free.
You are a smart man. You're just like me. I only answer questions people ask. And people don't notice that about me. Okay, let me change. What would you say to a black person that was thinking about coming into the police? Like, what to expect? Like the pitfalls.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, and I can say this to a fellow black person, not all black people are the same.
Oh, yes.
We don't think the same. We don't all have the same views. So therefore, when I understand where you're coming from with that question, but I think it's more about when you speak to any person, be that a woman, be that a black person, be that a black woman or not, it's about asking them what it is that they want to do with their life, what is it they're looking for. And then if you say, do you want to have a career? And quite often, I joined 30 odd years ago. The days of people having a lifetime in one organization might change. People maybe 2 to 5 years. But if you say to why I joined 30 odd years ago, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be able to give back to people, as corny as that might seem. But that passion's still with me after 30 odd years. I still want to be doing stuff that not only benefits me but benefits other people. So if there are people out there that want to have a career and do things like that, have the opportunity to do different things, then I'd say come and find out, get some more information. Go on a ride along, find out what the job is, speak to officers, speak to people from the same ethnic group as you, that they can tell you. And that's what my outreach team do. We run events where people can come in and have those honest conversations. What is it really like?
What's your next event?
We've got a number of events that we run on a weekly basis. So we can send you, anybody wants it, we can send them, share with them our website. where they can gain the information, where they can go to those events. We run them across London on a regular basis.
That you want to like shout out right now?
We are running something, I haven't got the dates with me, but I can probably get them through to you.
Yep.
But what is exciting, so for the past, since September last year, we've been running a number of events with the outreach teams. From September this year, we'll be looking to run a number of community-led events because we were able to get funding from the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime. And we've used that funding to be able to go out to the community to say, please work with us. You have established links within the community. You are respected. Do you have a genuine desire to have a more representative workforce? They say yes. We now want to give you money rather than usually, please do it free of charge.
Yeah.
We're now providing funding for organisations to work with us, run their events, so that people can get a better understanding. And for me, the most important thing is an informed opinion. Because when people join, I want them to join with their eyes wide open. That is how you get the right people to join, and that is how you get the right people to stay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what I want to ask you is, see your outreach, this is a personal question from my perspective. Your outreach, can I come some of your days?
You can come whenever you want to. All of the officers on outreach had to apply.
Yeah.
I interviewed probably about 90% of them to make sure that they were joining for the right reasons. Over 70% are from minority backgrounds, and over 65% are female supervisors. So we want to be able to demonstrate that we are showing how you can bring about the change within our own organisation.
Okay, that's really good. So I just want to come along because my problem is, as much as I am on social media, I'm not looking at a lot of stuff. So I'd love to come along and see some of the events.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been to one. I don't even think I went to one prior to becoming a police officer. I just applied.
We run them, so we run varieties, we run localised events, we run what we call insight sessions where people can come along. We run what we call Be This Change You Want to See events where we're at a certain location over 4 days, because it's interesting. You can do something at, say, Camberwell Green?
Yeah.
So we ran, and we regularly run events there, but first day, normally on a Thursday, you'll get people walking past, they just look, they won't engage.
Yeah.
Second day, it's kind of like, third day they'll come over and they'll be saying, well, I've seen you the last few days, what are you doing? You then have that conversation with them, and normally on the Sunday they come back with friends or family and they're saying, yeah, we want some more information. But you have to do it authentically.
Yeah.
You can't just turn up and think, oh, just because you've got some officers from minority backgrounds, people are going to flood. Because quite often it's that peer pressure. They don't want to be seen to be talking.
Yeah.
So you just give them a leaf that they walk off and then they call you up. And then we invite them for an insight session.
That's really good. Where do you see yourself next, the next 5 years?
In 5 years, I will be retired.
Is it? Are you actually going to leave?
I transferred from the British Transport Police, and because of the different pension arrangements, it meant that I had to serve an additional 5 years. I could have retired last year if I'd have stayed within the British Transport Police, but I joined the Met on promotion. Not that I'm counting the clock, but as you say, in 5 years' time, I will most definitely be retired. But within that period of time, I want to do as much as I can do in the area of outreach, depending upon obviously what the organisation wants. But when I'm having discussions with community leaders, the questions they ask me is, how long are you going to be doing this for? I want to be doing this, and I want to be doing this for the foreseeable future. I do not want promotion. And one of the dangerous things of saying this is, once you tell the organisation you're happy doing something, there's a danger they want to move you. I'm happy doing what I am doing.
Yeah.
I do not want to go to the next level. I feel that I can make more of an impact doing what I'm doing over a sustained period, because then we can demonstrate to people this is just not a quick fix.
That's the problem. That's one of the big problems with the Met. You know that? And I was highlighting this. We have SLT or leaders that come in for 1 or 2 years, change something minuscule or major, they leave.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. In what organization does that ever work? Like, why are we allowing this to happen? You should... Okay, they tenure PCs to stay in specialist roles, but not the SLT. I'm like, that's crazy. That is so crazy. So crazy. I can't remember what. I was speaking to someone in SLT about it, and I was just like, does no one else see that this is a major issue right here? And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I can start more awareness about this, because it needs to stop. Like, that definitely needs to stop. And also what I think also major needs, well, I could be wrong, but I think needs to be changed is the being allowed to be a sergeant, like applying to be a sergeant. That shouldn't be, oh yeah, if you want to, the day's on the 18th of March, you just put your interest in, you can be a sergeant. I'm like, well, no, that's silly, because in what other organisation can anyone just go, yeah, I'm gonna come in, had no experience, I want to be the CEO, you know. Let's be the CEO. Let's go. Like, no. You need some experience. You need to be good at the job. Mm-hmm. But in the Metropolitan Police, it's just like, I want to be a supervisor of, I don't know, whatever, schools, sergeant of schools officer. I've got no kids, never had experience with kids. I don't have any understanding of how the school system works. I can kind of learn it if I want to, but to be honest, I don't really need to. I just need to pass the competencies and the exam. And there we go, I'm in this role now. I'm like, that's an issue.
Yeah, but I think it's not just, for me, it's not just somebody being made a supervisor. It's then what's the ongoing review and evaluations, because somebody should be looking at the effectiveness of that individual and saying, right, if you're not doing certain things, giving them an improvement plan and all of the other stuff. You should not just be promoted and left to your own devices. You need to have that right level of supervision.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's beyond... Who do I talk to about this? Because I've spoken to the Deputy Commissioner. I don't think I've highlighted that to him. I probably should, but he can't. He's leaving. So is this something that's been built into the Metropolitan Police from day one? Can't be changed because of, I don't know, equality? No,
I think if you talk about individuals, if there's the recently appointed Chief Superintendent that has oversight of career development, a gentleman named by the name of Tom Norton. Okay. So he'll be able to explain to you the process and how it's managed and how it's monitored, probably give you a bit more in-depth overview of how that's managed.
Yeah, because I always say, people that don't mind you a sergeant, I'm like, because I wouldn't necessarily be the greatest. I have some aspects in which I'm really strong with. Like, I would say I'm a people person to an extent when I feel like it. And I understand I listen to people at times. And man management, I'm cool with that. But then discipline, yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? I'll be like more like today's gone. I'll be like, I'll let this person know. So I'm a bit more empathetic to understanding people's needs. Whether that makes me good or bad, I don't know. And depending on the department that I'm in, yeah or no. But it's just like I'm not having. Actually, I am having a go. I'm having a go at some sergeants. Some just shouldn't be there. And I'm just gonna say it straight up now. They shouldn't be there, and the Met needs to find a way to. I wouldn't say make it more equal. I'm just saying to make it just change. Just reformat the whole process of becoming sergeant, inspector, and have it more. I would like it more like directed. Like, okay, we're gonna see your strengths and weaknesses. You don't have to tick all these boxes. Forget all ticking all the boxes. It's just that if you're extremely strong in one, it's like, okay, I know where to put you. You'll be really good in neighborhoods, and it'll. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I still think does that does that happen, or do you? Because from what I know, it doesn't. It's just, this is what I want to do. Let's go.
That is, let me put it this way. When I was BCU commander, basic command unit commander of the South area, so that was Bromley, Croydon, Sutton, you would look at the strengths of your sergeants, you'd look at the strengths of your inspectors and chief inspectors, and you would try to put them where you felt they had the most ability.
Yeah.
But then, as a leader, your responsibility is to say, if that person is very good in a certain area, but if they've got ambitions to get to the next level, and you know that they are lacking a skill in a certain area, you may put them into another area in order that they can develop and become a more rounded leader.
Can the sergeants protest and be like, well, no, I don't want to do that? Do they have the power to just not do it as such?
Well, as long as there is a rationale behind why you're doing it, and it's for operational reasons, then you listen to somebody making an objection, and if it's justified, then you listen to it. But if you're saying to that person, I need you to be covering a certain role, ultimately we're a disciplined organisation, and you get that person to do it.
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better to trust that the supervisors above them can just be like, nah, you should go here. I don't know if it happens as much as I'd like, but it's nice to know that it's there to be used as an option.
All I can do is speak from my own experience and what I've done. I know my job when I have been in command positions, and I even do it now with my teams. I've got 12 teams, I've got 12 outreach leads, I've got 12 sergeants. I've got to look at their strengths and weaknesses and say, right, where does that person operate? How do I improve that person? Because one of the commitments I made was that if I need to see people progressing through the ranks, what am I doing to develop them? And sometimes you've got to not be selfish, because it'd be easy for me to say, that person is great, I'm going to keep them there. But if I keep them there, that's not going to help their longer term progression.
Yeah.
So I've got to move them. They may kick and scream about it, but I'm doing it for their own benefit. And then in a year to 2 years' time, they come back, you know what, I didn't like the decision, but now I can see why you did it, thank you.
Yeah.
But you have to explain to them why you're doing it.
Yeah. No, I hear that. Is investigations, the process of investigation, I know this isn't what you work in, but I just want to know your thoughts on it. For me, I've been investigated, I've lost count. I was driving my car today, and I was thinking to myself, I'm probably being investigated right now for what I'm doing. I know I was earlier, but the odds are quite high that I've been reported to the DPS or the PSU, and they haven't told me yet, but that is what it is. The procedure in which it works, and I don't know if you saw, I asked the Mayor, Mayor Khan, about what he's doing to protect officers, because black officers are being disproportionately investigated and so forth. You know about it, that's great. Did you see it?
Yeah, I heard about it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Nice. So what are your thoughts on the disproportionality, in the sense that do you feel as though it can be fixed, or is it something that's kind of like a lost cause until there's more participation in terms of like black officers being sergeants to like sort of chop it out?
So I do think it can be fixed, but I think we first have to recognise that there is a problem. And until we recognise what the problem is and get to the root causes, then the changes will be slower than they need to be. A good friend of mine, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying her name, Detective Chief Superintendent Tara McGovern. Used to work with her, she used to lead within the area of recruitment. She's just gone into DPS. She used to be the lead for the Network of Women. Now that's a person that I could say hand on heart she will make the changes.
Okay.
But she can't do it by herself. And we do need to have, one of the first things I normally say, when you look at departments and you look at there being issues to do with race and disproportionality, you have to ask yourself, what is the representation within that department? And what is the representation at decision-making level? If you don't have the right level of representation at that decision-making level, you're going to continue to have the behaviours that you're talking about.
I want to know where I can find them. I've got most figures. I need to find the numbers broken down, but okay, that is going to be some big research to try and find out the number of supervisors that are black.
HR will have that information.
The number of officers that are black supervisors.
They will have information that demonstrates supervisory and diversity and gender.
I hope so. So now I've asked for some. I know they don't carry figures. I may be wrong, figures for officers that have died or killed themselves, which I think is
not sure.
sad. I don't think they do. I asked. That's a topic for a different day. But yeah, I did say it was the last question, but I'm going to ask you another question because it just came out in my head. Our intranet. I'm gonna ask everyone in SLT this, and it can be yes, no. Yes, no answer. How do you feel about the comment section on the intranet? Do you think it should be everything, not unmoderated, because you have to have, you need it to be moderated to an extent, but when there's like, I don't know, inflammatory comments that aren't necessarily, they're inflammatory, yeah. Do you think that they should stay on there for all to see, or they should be removed?
Okay, so I think the best way to answer it is to give a practical example. Recently, there was an intranet article about the new recruitment ambassadors toolkit, which is a toolkit for anybody that wants to have conversations about attracting people to join the organisation. And I was asked to oversee the comments and provide feedback, because my team is leading on that toolkit. So there were a number of comments in there where people wanted to express their views. My personal view is we are in a work setting. So as long as the comments are professional, as long as we show a degree of compassion in terms of people being passionate and getting their views across, then I'm fine with it. But when somebody clearly steps over the mark, then they should be held accountable for it, and the stuff should be taken off. Now, there were a number of comments on there. There was one, I can't remember the exact comments, but somebody said something that they felt was inflammatory, and they said, I look forward to my meeting with no tea and no coffee. Meaning he felt that he was going to get a bollocking, or he was going to get told off. And I said, listen, we can have a conversation. Yeah. He called me up. I spoke with him yesterday for half an hour. He had a view initially, which was, why would I look to help recruit people? The Met is this, the Met. I said, well, hold on a second. Why are you still working in an organisation and you are saying you don't want other people to join? If you genuinely do not support the Met, why are you still working? It was like, you know what, I hadn't thought of it that way. Now, to go back to your point, if he had not put that on the intranet, I wouldn't have had the conversation. So we should encourage people to go on there. We should encourage them to say what they've got to say. But you can say stuff in a professional way without being rude and offensive. Because ask yourself this, when these people apply for the job, would they be rude and offensive in the interview?
Of course not.
So therefore, why do they now feel it's appropriate to do it when they join the job?
It's the internet age.
Be accountable.
I know, I'm all for accountability. But me, I grew up when the internet was just getting great, so I wouldn't consider myself a troll. But I understand when people want to say stuff, and I understand why and how people say stuff to be inflammatory without doing it. They do it. They're not being disingenuous. They're masking it, and it happens a lot on our internet. I like the comments to stay up. My biggest worry is we've got Baroness Casey doing her review report or investigation into the police. I want to know where those comments are disappearing to, because me knowing the Met, they probably aren't keeping them or logging them. Whether they discipline the person, which is fine, but we need to keep these to show, here's an example of how people speak to each other.
Yeah.
And what's happening. I'm praying I'm wrong, because I'm going to ask where they are, but I believe that the Met are deleting them. And I don't think they're necessarily deleting them to hide the truth, because officers will just talk about it. It's more of, I wouldn't say it's incompetency, it's just thoughtlessness or lack of thought behind it.
Well, the point is sometimes people type stuff in the heat of passion, and that's where the bit about our values is showing compassion with somebody, speaking to them. If somebody tells you know what, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay. But if you get the person repeatedly, which is your point about keeping records and everything else, there's a pattern of behaviour here, and despite speaking to them, giving them the opportunity to change their ways, is that person, if they're prepared to do that what are they prepared to do when they go out speaking to the public?
Yeah. There are officers that I know that repeatedly, there are well-known people on the internet that you would think don't even have a normal job because they spend so much time on the internet, that are always in the comment section on specific topics that normally to do with diversity, race, or whatever, and they always have something. It's on the line, but this is what baffles me. Where is everyone's line? Because from what you're explaining, your line would be here. My line's here, because I'm in the internet age, so I'm totally prepared for people to say, you can say whatever you want. Say whatever you want, but you have not got, you've got freedom of speech, but just not freedom from accountability. So I'm just like, hey, say what you like to me on the internet, but we can have this discussion.
I think the key thing for me is this is done within a working environment, so don't be surprised that you're being held to a certain standard.
The accountability factor of it, that's what I'm saying. Most people just don't want that either. Because I have these discussions while on post, because we spend a lot of time with specific officers, 2 hours, 4 hours sometimes, or even 6 hours, and you get to know people really, really well. And some people do have, I would say, borderline extreme views, but it's like, well, it's the way you express them and the way you articulate yourself, because extreme doesn't necessarily always mean bad. I don't like extremes, but some people can be kind of extreme. But I'm getting the wrap it up sign from Mia, so is there anything you want to talk about? Shout out on outreach, anything that you're doing massively that you feel like needs to be pushed out that's not being pushed out enough?
I just need to give you the details of where people can get more information about the work that we're doing in outreach. So I need to get that through to you in order that people can put it on there.
Have you got Instagram, sir?
No, but our team have, so we'll get that to you as well.
Are you going to get them to follow me?
Well, I thought you got enough followers, didn't you?
Me? God no, you can never have enough followers. It's all about ego in that. You need thousands and hundreds of likes to be super famous. I'm joking. I hate it. I don't like that stuff. But yeah, it would be nice if you followed me. That'd be great. But we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for coming, sir. It was
You're
great
welcome.
to have you here.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Can I just say, wait, you are, the first black SLT member to come on the show. My memory's really bad, so I would have a round of applause. But hopefully, you're setting, an example to the rest, and they will come. Marmadari's coming, so not to say that she wouldn't on. She's coming next, so. But any of the others, it would be nice to see all of the black faces, so everyone can see who you are.
Yeah.
Because right now, I don't think many of the black community would know who you are.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Okay,
for everyone, I hate doing this part. I hate doing this part. Could you subscribe and like and share stuff? Share stuff for me, please. I really appreciate it. We need to get a wider audience. There'll be a button somewhere on the screen. And thank you for watching The Good, The Bad, The Ugly.